Good afternoon, everyone, / early evening. This is Jedi Dawes. That's Jedi, not Jadi, not Jedediah, not Jonah, not John, not Jonai. Jedi. And I am coming at you live and direct from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex with an inaugural episode. I don't know if I've used this hashtag yet or not on YouTube. I've been using it for a year plus on Facebook as my own hashtag I came up with called Courage is Rising. And Courage is Rising is simply about people doing extraordinary things on an ordinary basis, utilizing the courage that they have within, that they are discovering or have yet to discover, to stand up for themselves and for others and for their communities and things of that nature. And so if you're on Facebook, feel free to look up the hashtag Courage is Rising. I have a lot of live videos where I cover various topics that are near and dear to my heart, or that I just think of randomly. But most of them have a pretty direct application to myself as a person, to myself as a black man, and some even to myself as a Christian. But the middle portion is one that I continue to see examples about with other community members, and that has affected me directly as well. My senior year of Howard, I was arrested by the Prince George's Police Department, and a Mr. Officer Cragg. Never forget his name, even though it's been just past the 11-year mark. And so, I'm so fortunate every time I think about it that I was not, beat to a pulp, that he didn't fear for his life to the point where he felt justified in pulling out his weapon and placing multiple holes in my body or in my head. But he did see fit, once I asked him the last time for his badge number, to arrest me, and that cost thousands of dollars to try the case. And I was charged with carrying a concealed deadly weapon. That was the knife that I had in my backpack. I was on my way to a jazz club, and I had my school backpack on my back with my books in there and whatnot, and the knife was next to a fork because I ate lunch in my office as the student council president of College of Pharmacy Nursing and Allied Health Sciences there at Howard University. And so that sucked. Definitely sucked. Definitely have a way of going back in the various jobs that I have had in the 11 years since, but I would say confidently that I'm sure I've lost out on about between $50,000 to $75,000 in salary in terms of different jobs that I was fortunate to be hired for, but hired at a lower rate, right? And so, when we talk about police brutality, we're talking about an issue with multiple layers. And a significant portion of that layer is the affordability of being able to try one's case. So often there are cases that really kind of fall by the wayside because people can't afford a lawyer that's going to take significant action on their behalf, and that's really unfortunate. It shouldn't take someone be within inches of their life or someone's life being taken for a lawyer to be interested, but a lot of times it seems like it's the case. And so this is an idea that I've been thinking about for really the last 2 or 3 years, and for the longest, I'll be honest, I wanted it to come to fruition and for people to be able to see that, oh, it was Jedi's idea, right? I'm not a lawyer, don't plan on being one. I used to want to go to law school when I was in North Carolina at Central, but I'm positive I've got other paths forward that I think are going to be just as powerful, if not more so. But I wanted people to be able to see this as my idea. I have a passion for marketing. It's one of my talents, one of my strengths. And so I wanted people to be able to see that, this is Jedi's idea that he came up with and that he executed. And it's helping people, and it's really cool, right? But there are some ideas that are just so urgent that you can't be so obsessed with the win for yourself that you don't put it out there, that whoever comes across it and is able to bring it to pass does not have the opportunity to do so, because you're holding it to yourself. And so I'm making this video to put it out there on YouTube and to advocate for it being a solution for Black folks to begin to perhaps rally around and think about as a means of justice going forward. Excuse me. There are so many, as I've said and as we've seen, as we continue to see, so many cases that are frivolous, etc. But a lot of people don't have the resources to do so, in terms of a lot of the resources to try the case. What I've been envisioning is a legal defense fund of sorts that is primarily crowdfunded, and that people would begin to donate various amounts. There wouldn't be any great direct incentive besides perhaps being mentioned in gratitude, but the people would donate to various in various amounts, and as the fund began to grow larger and larger, what I envision is for there to be senior and junior lawyers, basically, that try these various cases in different parts of the country. And as there are victories from those different cases, they are then able to take a larger part of the award than what they would receive on average in, say, an everyday case, and a significant portion would go back into the fund for the work to continue. So let me give a breakdown. In my head, it would be and I could be wrong on this, but I think on average, lawyers usually take a third. Well, in my head, instead of a third, these lawyers would take 40%, right? With the senior lawyers splitting up 25%, junior lawyers splitting 15%. Then the 30% would go towards the plaintiff, right? The person that was the victim, and then another 30% would go back into the fund of being able to sustain these efforts for these lawyers to try these different cases. And definitely might be oversimplifying it, but that's the basis of this idea. And why I think it's important is because when it comes to wealth positioning and positioning of resources, a lot of us just don't have it in the first place. And so there are a lot of these cases that just excuse me, continue to persist with little to no change in the action that happens, because so often it's not met with a consequence. You know, and a quick caveat that 30% that goes into the fund, 5% of that 30%, so 25% directly back into the fund, 5% of each case being set aside to be able to utilize for towards people's bails that have been wrongfully detained, imprisoned, etc. And that piece is inspired by none other than Ms. Sandra Bland, whom I've not been able to go a month since her murder years ago in thinking about her. And not only do I think about her, but I think about the fact that as I understand it, one thing about Courage is Rising, if I'm wrong on any point, and even if you disagree, but definitely if I'm wrong on any point, please correct me. I'm open to correction at all times. And so, as I understand it, her bail is $1,500. And this is not to, bringing this up is not to shame the family whatsoever, right? Truth be told, my grandma would have done it, but push come to shove. But when I was arrested, I'm almost positive my parents didn't have the $1,500 right then and there to be able to bail me out. It might have been even a lesser amount, but I know it's definitely a rough financial time, just being totally transparent, right? My cousin, one of my mom's cousins, who's now deceased, who was an OBGYN, paid my bail and was the catalyst for me being able to get out. It still took 13 hours, right? So I say that because there is no there's not necessarily a guarantee that Sandra Bland's murder would not have happened, but overall, in terms of those funds being available for those bail amounts to be paid, you would definitely see a great reduction in the ability for these victims to further come to harm in a jail. We've seen video after video, y'all, of people being abused in jail, tasered, spat upon, beaten, while handcuffed, and just generally abused. And it absolutely isn't right. It's evil, and it has to be met with consequence. And you're not going to, this is not the 1800s. You're not going to militia your way to justice, but you can maneuver your way to justice, and that is something that we got to get serious about, or that we got to continue to be serious about. I'm not coming from any posture that I'm the first person to move towards a solution like this. I think I'm far from it, but it is something that I just want to raise up again, the necessity of there being some kind of traction, some kind of mechanism for this to be an ongoing issue that we seek solution to. There are so many different things that we rally around that have no direct impact or benefit to our community. But part of the reason why I am confident that black folk feel so strongly about police brutality is the fact that we know that our degrees, most of us anyways, we know that our degrees will not save us. The car that we drive will not save us. Our zip code will not save us. When it comes to those in law enforcement, I'll say, I don't even call them officers, because I take the work, the mantle, the calling of being a police officer very seriously. It's something, again, in all honesty, I've considered doing myself, even after the profiling and whatnot. I don't think that all police are bad, but I also don't toe the line and act like there's not a problem. There's no Jerry's in my circle, right? And my name's not Dak, nor Ezekiel. It's Jedi. And so, those two things can both exist. I can and do recognize the potential for great good done as in the office of an officer, and I can recognize that there are a lot of officers that have zero accountability in really any facet of life, which also leads to police officers as a whole being one of the groups most likely to commit domestic violence, right? And so accountability is important in every sector of life, and no uniform, no title, no office should exempt any of us from that. And so a good way to influence that action continuing to move towards solution is while it's being affected. And what I was saying just a second ago, before I kind of went sideways there, is that a lot of black folk realize it could happen to us at any time. I am confident that not a lot of white people realize that, hey, this is an issue that can affect you just as much, because they don't view police brutality as a reality for them, right? If they come across stories of white people being victims of police brutality, which there definitely are, and there's definitely actually quite a bit, but they don't view it as something that could happen to them. They don't view it as something that they need to guard against and be hyper vigilant to ensure that it doesn't happen. They view it as an outlier, as someone who should have just followed the rules, and it'll just go better for them, right? But we in the black community know, the majority of us, without a shadow of a doubt, that it's not just enough to follow the rules. There must be absolute mechanisms in place for accountability, and there must be absolute policies in place for consequences when that accountability does not happen, and those officers do not adhere to the calling to protect and serve. So that's what I've got right now, y'all. Feel free to share the video using the hashtag #CourageIsRising. Feel free to check this out on Facebook. Hashtag, again, #CourageIsRising. And we thank you for your time. Feel free to like and share this video. Feel free to share it on the different platforms, on Facebook, on Instagram. I'll start to beef up my presence on YouTube. And I just thank you for your time. I hope this video has been of value to you. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's continue to think of ways in which we can affect the arc of justice with what we have. I fully believe in the strength of the collective. I think that's a large part of why we're here today. And I think, and I know that's a large part of us going forward. We can't do it alone. And so I thank you for your time, and I'll talk to you again soon. So long.